Hey everybody, it's Bruno. If you want to be our next guest on AndB, click on the Be My Next Guest link below. Hope you enjoy this episode, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
That's right. What's up, you sucker? That's right. What's up, you sucker?
Okay, it's Bruno with AndB, where it can't all be serious, and we continue our conversation with everybody's famous financial planner, guru, kick asset person, Elle from Ellements Financial Group. Now we have up on the thumbnail there 3 things you should really look for when you're selecting and working with, drumroll, financial planner. So what's your number 1 criteria, advice? And I write it down, you know that.
Okay, so the first thing I would say is, like you said, a designation, like making sure they have proper financial designation and licensing. To be a financial planner in Canada, you do need the licensing even to sell any products. However, if you're looking for advice, you want to make sure they're a CFP, which is a Certified Financial Planner designation, which is a very difficult designation to get. It just doesn't happen overnight. It almost equates to a degree. It's almost 4 years in general with experience and everything else. So Certified Financial Planner. There are a lot of other designations that are very good as well, ranging from investment designations to insurance designations, things like the Chartered Life Underwriter, which is a CLU designation, and there are things like the Certified Health Insurance Specialist, the CHS. So there are a lot of designations. There's the PFP, I believe it's the Personal Financial Planner. I am not up on all the different designations, but there are at least 20 to 30 main designations in Canada. So at the end of the day, I think what you want to look for is just the qualifications and making sure your planner has taken the level to step up their game. Because in Canada right now, as it sits today, although I know they're trying to change this, you don't actually need a designation to hold yourself out as a financial advisor. And for your interest, you want to make sure someone who's being held to a higher standard, and they have to do X number of CE continuing education credits every year. And that means they're keeping up-to-date information, they're learning new things, they're staying on top of what's happening in the industry and the markets. And that's so important when you're looking for this kind of advice. You want to make sure that you're dealing with just a qualified, designated financial planner.
So that's number 1. I know where I grew up back in the day, the tougher neighborhoods. You know, all the people had the DWAI. You know, that designation. You know that one. Don't worry about it. Trust me. So I think we stay away from that one these days. But that's, you know, that's the technical side, right? Where you need to make sure that the person basically is committed to what they're doing and they understand the rules and regulations. What would be number 2?
Okay, so number 2 is, and I will throw in a bonus one, by the way, because I will actually say before I even go into number 2 that you have to like the person and you have to actually want to be friends with them or be in a relationship with them in the aspect of like a work relationship. So make sure you like the person. Don't just go with them because they're qualified. So that's my little bonus tip right there. But the second thing I want to say is make sure that they're independent. And make sure they have no quotas on them. Why do I love independent advisors? It's going back to that whole fiduciary thing where basically they've got your best interests first and they're basically acting, you know, like just for your best interest. So what we've got is, when I say independent and no quotas, a lot of companies in Canada do have sales quotas. If you walk into a bank, I know for a fact they've got sales targets and they're employees of that corporation. So when you're dealing with someone who's truly independent, they have separate contracts with different companies and they're set up on systems to either be independent or to utilize any investment platform or just being able to have that option and that choice available to them instead of selling a proprietary product or service. There's even some life insurance companies too where they're only forced to sell just their company versus where an insurance broker can actually like shop the market for you, similar to like a mortgage broker, that kind of a thing. Right. So you want to have that's in your best interest to be able to get the best products and rates for you personally. So as we know, with companies typically have a sweet spot. And that sweet spot is different for every company. So as an example, in the insurance realm, I'm just making this up, this isn't true, but as an example, Sun Life Insurance could have the best, critical illness rates, and Manulife could have the best life insurance rates. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying that's what a good insurance broker will do for you, and they'll hunt out the best products at the best rates with the best contracts for you, as an example. So that is why you want to be with someone who's fully independent and they have no quota, so they're not sitting there selling you something for the sake of selling you something. And that's going back to the fiduciary, where they're trying to do everything in your best interests.
And that is pretty tough for an up-and-comer or startup financial planner. I think that, and I'd like to talk about this for a couple of minutes. I'm being kind of serious. I know we joke around and can't all be serious, but it's interesting because when you have younger people entering the investment market, they think they're more educated than we are. The older, I am older, but truth of the matter is, somebody enters, and I'm not going to name a name of the company, but XYZ investment company or the banks, right? They're limited to the products they can sell you most of the time.
Absolutely.
So why don't we talk about, because that's a big awareness. People kind of say, I'm in mutual funds, I'm in RSPs, I'm in an oil fund, but did they really shop it around? Number one, probably not. And number two, if they're not independent, correct?
Correct.
And if they're not, they're not allowed to.
Exactly. Like, I'll just say this as flat out knowledge, which I'm sure everyone understands and agrees. But if you walk into any of the big six, you have a good idea of what product line you're getting when you walk into that bank, right? So you're only buying their product, and that's all you're offered.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Why don't we spend 2 minutes telling people, some people might know this, but when you get in a mutual fund, what's the difference between one mutual fund and another mutual fund? Notwithstanding the stocks they have in there, right? But, and I'm kind of leading this conversation a little, this question by saying it all comes down to the trader or the person who manages that fund, correct?
Absolutely. It's the team, the management team, doing your research on who is the management team behind the portfolio. And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that all bank funds are bad. There are some great, like I said, there's that sweet spot with every company. And you kind of have to pick and choose through their product shelf and see kind of what those are, right? So there's so many more things going on with the investment world than even dealing with the stocks, but definitely making sure you've got a management team with a great track record. That's huge.
But you have a wider range of products if you go with an independent person, right? An independent financial planner. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true. If they're independent, yes, and if they have access and contracts and are MFDA or IROC, meaning they're licensed for either stocks or mutual fund sales, they're typically allowed to sell any product in Canada. So we on AndB we practice with it. We perform without a net here. So on your book Strut, again, you can show it again if you want. How to kick financial assets in the ass. Do you cover any of that stuff on how to select the proper financial planner for you? I do. And I also cover even just getting started with investing. I think it's in chapter 10. And I actually call it the running shoes chapter because I relate it to a pair of shoes. So that's when you're off and away and you're running and you're building your assets and you're investing and doing all those kinds of things. So yeah.
So it's covered in one of the chapters. The reason why I bring that up is because, again, we have limited time here. And I think that's, going back to your previous comments and one of our other podcasts is that, or video casts, is that, being aware of your thoughts of what your plan is, and the step number one being, your estate planning. What are your goals, right? And it's kind of funny where you start is kind of like right here. And then the first step is picking a real good financial planner that you're comfortable with. You said likability, independent, designated, and all that kind of stuff. So you do cover that on your podcast also? Like, have you had guests that want to hear about that?
Oh, I do cover that, and I'm sure there will be definitely more conversation about that. That's kind of a hot topic right now, I think, too. And getting into kind of the third thing, which I was going to talk about, was even the fees and how do you pay for a financial planner. See if they have options for payment, such as fee for service options, because you can get a financial plan done that is, totally from a fiduciary standpoint, where you just pay for that service. And that's a great option for a lot of people. Now, the problem comes in where some people can't afford it and they just want to get started with basic investments. So then there's other ways to get compensated where it's like an embedded fee within their, the management expense ratio on their investments, as an example, or through the commission of an insurance product. Again, they're like not one kind of like the shoe example, like not one size fits all. But it's just important to know the options around paying fees. And here's this is my pet peeve. This is the bee in my bonnet. And the bee in my bonnet is that everyone thinks that these services should be free. And there's too many commercials out there right now that financial advisors are taking 30% of your retirement. And I'm not going to name names, but total fallacy. It's like any product or service. Are you saying that your accountant's taking 30% of your retirement? Are you saying that, every time you go to the groceries, they're taking 30% of your retirement? Like, some of that stuff is just kind of a little bit, the industry doesn't like it, let's say. And we feel that some of these commercials need to be taken off of TV, but you need to pay for a service regardless of, once you realize that there are fees involved, and that you just need to understand the value you're getting for those fees. And I will say once you get into the value aspect of the fees, that's where the difference is. And that's where you may be paying similar fees to what you're getting charged at the bank, but the value you're going to get if you're going to pay that same fee over with an independent financial planner, that value is probably going to be 10 times, and I'm just being honest here, in my opinion, of what you're going to get through a traditional large bank, as an example.
Well, it's interesting. I use the concept, and, I always throw in my 2 cents worth, and people fast forward it sometimes. They've admitted, Lisa, but I always call it the Snicker bar effect, right? It's kind of like you go to, a gas station or something like that, and you pay. I haven't bought a Snickers bar, I don't know how long, but it's got to be at least $1.25, $1.50 now.
Oh yeah.
Is it? But if you think about it, like, what does it cost whoever makes the chocolate bar? It might cost them 20 cents. So are they really stealing? You ever see a commercial saying, buy this chocolate bar or make it yourself? Well, in some of those commercials where you have to make your own trades and own decision, own research and all that kind of stuff, you're basically playing the casino in a game theory. And that's what I kind of find. I kind of agree with you, is value to me, value is return when you need it, in the way you need it. Like, there's no sense telling somebody, and I'm just going to pick on an age group, 70 years old or 64, and they're ready to retire and they've done all the right things, and the market tanks, and go, you know what? You just need to be patient. That's bullshit, right? And so you need to really, know, going back to the number one thing was, what are your goals? Because, at the end of the day, like I was mentioning the Snickers bar, we all know that if we make 400,000 million Snicker bars, we'll be able to make them for 38 cents. But why do we pay $1.50 for it? Because we don't have time or effort to make it. And the return is a great tasting chocolate bar. So you have just endorsed Snickers, right? So exactly. I like that whole thing about fees, because fees versus value, or against value, right? Yeah. Would you be willing to pay a financial planner $100,000 a year if you're making me $500,000 a year? Maybe. I don't know. Right?
Yeah. I kind of liken it to like the Ferrari, and people always want luxury goods. Well, part of that luxury side of, goods and services is that you're getting a higher level of service. Like my clients, they get, birthday cards and phone calls, and gifts maybe at Christmas, and they're just getting a higher level of service. Plus I'm answering them on the weekend. I'm texting them. I'm giving them that, better service. They're getting much higher level of service than they would typically if they're at an institution where they have to sit on hold nowadays with a large bank for 4 hours to the call center, right? So you pay for that. And you know what? A lot of people, It saves frustration, especially on the weekends and whatnot. So it's great to be able to have that extra value add that like I can give my clients.
Oh, that's awesome. You know what? So number one, make sure they know what they're doing. So a designation. Number two is, if I remember, independent. And number three, fees versus value.
For sure.
Holy smokes, I'm 100% on this one. That's good.
So good.
Well, you know what? That's pretty much all the time we have for this episode today. Thank you for tuning in with us. And you know what? Make sure you subscribe to our MegaPixx media channel so you will never miss an episode. And also you can follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram. We have content almost every day. So thank you very much for joining us. I'll see you guys soon.